morning, good afternoon, good evening in Israel, and thank you for joining us to the fourth session of the Promise of the Negev, talking about the future of the Negev. Thank you so much for the esteemed speakers with us today. And before we just dive into this exciting topic, I'd like to introduce the Executive Director of American Friends of Soroka Medical Center, Rachel Heisler, to greet you all. Rachel.
Thank you, Pazit. Thank you so much. I am incredibly proud of our Soroka Salon team that developed and hosted this wonderful Promise of the Negev series. And I would like to pause for a moment and thank Pazit Levitan, our Director of Development, for helping make this an extraordinary experience for all, and to thank Deborah Turkey, Board Secretary and the Chair of the Soroka Salon Initiative, for inspiring and nurturing this very special program. On behalf of the entire Soroka family, I welcome each and every one of you into our virtual salon. As you have for sure come to appreciate, Soroka is one of the largest and most important institutions in Israel and is the key to fulfilling David Ben-Gurion's famous vision for the desert to bloom. We are committed to uplifting the population through outstanding medical care, education, research, collaboration, and endless innovation. The pioneering spirit of the Negev, combined with the special heart and compassion of our medical team, which is sensitive and supportive to our unique population, enhances our reputation as a true living symbol of peaceful coexistence. This series was designed to illuminate the interesting modern history of the region, as it is by understanding history that we can truly appreciate where we are today and appreciate how Soroka is so essential to the growth and development of the Negev. And it is such a vital factor in the future strategic development of the region. And today will be a very special capstone as we contemplate the future of the Negev. By joining us, you helped fulfill Soroka Medical Center's vision to help save lives in Israel and around the world. Donations that are made in conjunction with this series are allocated to pediatric emergency care. In addition, this is the last chance to receive a specially inscribed book from Professor Bar-Zohar. If you donate $180 or more today or this week at www.soroka.org/children, you will help us achieve our life-saving mission, and you will receive, as a token of our appreciation, a copy of David Ben-Gurion's biography signed by its author, Professor Bar-Zohar. We invite you, in addition to this opportunity, we invite you to stay connected and to follow the cutting-edge developments yet to come at Soroka. Visit our website, soroka.org, follow us on social media at Soroka Friends, and as the skies begin to open up and you're traveling to Israel again, please plan to visit Soroka in Be'er-Sheva. You have only to visit Soroka Medical Center once for one day to understand the profound role that we play in the social fabric for the extremely diverse people of the Negev. And now it is my honor to introduce today's guests. Dr. Shlomi Codish, he is an MD, MPH, and has served as Director General of Soroka University Medical Center in Be'er-Sheva since February of 2018, following a very distinguished career at Clalit Health Services, where he served as the Medical Director for the Southern Region for 6 years and as head of the Electronic Health Record Project. Born in the United States, Dr. Codish received his MD and MPH at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev and studied medical informatics at Yale University as an NIH fellow. He launched his career at Soroka as an internal medicine physician. As Director General, he has presided over the opening of the Legacy Heritage Oncology Center and Dr. Larry Norton Institute, the first comprehensive cancer center for the Negev, and the groundbreaking of the Francis and Nathan Kirsch Emergency Department, which we are so grateful for today. He has championed many other important projects for Soroka, including the creation of a new rehabilitation hospital, the Future Innovation Center at the Soroka Ben-Gurion Research Institute, and is planning a new building for the neonatal intensive care unit to meet the needs of the Negev. Under his leadership, Soroka was ranked the best hospital in Israel for infection control, a status maintained for the past 3 years. And he has orchestrated Soroka's response to COVID-19, seamlessly establishing the infrastructure necessary to confront the pandemic, thereby fulfilling Soroka's commitment to the health of the 1.2 million residents of the Negev. Thank you for being with us, Dr. Codish. Dr. Yasmeen Abu-Fraiha is a young physician specializing in internal medicine who is currently acting as the executive director of Rodena, formerly known as Genesis, an NGO that she founded that aims to prevent genetic diseases in the Middle East, especially in the Bedouin community, by spearheading premarital genetic testing and matching. She also serves on the board of directors of Project Wadi Atir, Yanabia, Tamar Center, and Ajik and Nisped. All are social projects and NGOs aiming to improve Bedouin lives in Israel. She has won many awards, including the 2007 Raman Award for Quality Leadership and Excellence, and was chosen to be part of the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Very prestigious. Yasmeen holds a Bachelor of Science in Medical Science and an MD from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And this summer, she plans to commence studies at Harvard's Kennedy School for a Master's in Public Administration. And our extraordinary professor, Michael Bar-Zohar. We are so fortunate for your friendship. You're a world-renowned historian, author, researcher, and politician, and you have been our intrepid guide on this intellectual exploration of the Negev. We are so grateful for your enduring friendship and look forward to many, many future collaborations. And now, back to you, Pazit, and the program.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for this warm introduction. I'm going to share a screen and start with a few pictures before we go to Bar-Zohar as he hosts the distinguished guest. So as you can see, this is the fourth and final of this webinar series, and we truly hope to transition into from the virtual salon into real Soroka salons and continue this great initiative. We had 4 sessions. It was spearheaded by our board and by our, if you see that, Deborah Cherky right here, the board secretary. And I just want to mention that I heard today that Deborah's parents right here, Mario and Liliana Yuchak, visited Soroka yesterday and donated equipment, much needed advanced equipment to eye care department here with Shlomi Codish. So toda rabba, and it's very heartwarming to see how it all comes together. So as we said, we started with the early days at in the Negev. We hosted Ambassador Chaim Divon, and we continued with talking about innovation in the Negev and the next generation and breakthroughs that are happening in the Negev with a focus on innovation in healthcare and technology. We continue talking about genetics research and diversity in the Negev with esteemed doctors and professors. And now we are talking about the future of the Negev. So with that, we're going to start with a very special picture that Professor Michael Bar-Zohar will talk about and take us from here. Please. Professor. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Here you see me standing in front of Ben-Gurion's grave in Sde-Boker. I have the habit of coming to Sde-Boker every Independence Day. Is my way of remembering this great man, his vision, his heritage, and his prophecy for the future of Israel and of the Negev. He always told me the Negev is 60 to 65% of the territory of Israel. We have to develop it. And if you see the Negev today, I think it's fulfilling his prophecy. Ben-Gurion at a certain time, when he arrived to the country, and he saw so many Bedouins in the Negev, he wanted to convert them to Judaism. So he appointed one of the Israeli famous colonel in the army and said, you have to convert the Bedouins. And he tried. And after a year, when Gurion met him and said, how many did you convert? And he said, 8. So we're going to realize that the Bedouins were the Bedouins, and they're our friends and neighbors. So we have to coexist and live with our neighbors. I just want to mention that since our last meeting, the third chapter of our webinar, a lot of things happened to Israel. First of all, if you follow the news, 2 days ago, we got a new cabinet, a new government. It was a tremendous fight between right and left, or between those who wanted to keep Prime Minister Netanyahu at his position and those who wanted to bring a change. So they created a new cabinet, and we are not going to have a 5th election in 2 years, what we feared a lot. And we'll see how the new cabinet is going to work. For the moment, their major goal was really to create a new situation in which we have another new prime minister, Mr. Naftali Bennett. We shall see how it works. And yet, before that, we had almost a war with the Gaza when missiles and rockets rained over Israel, and the Israeli Air Force retaliated. It was an unnecessary, bloody conflict, and thank God that we are over it. Now we hope to find a solution, a long-term solution, in order to calm the situation before we try to find also a solution for our Middle Eastern problem between the relations of the Israelis and the Palestinians. Now, I must tell you that I'm very happy that today we can talk not only about the Palestinians in general, but especially about the people of the Negev, about the Bedouins. And our first guest is Dr. Yasmeen Abu-Fraiha, who is a fantastic person, both a doctor, and she's going to study public administration, and she's heading all kinds of community organizations and foundations. And I think that, Dr. Fraiha, you are the symbol and also the promise of the relations between the Jews and the Bedouins in the Negev. You come from there, and your goal, if you want it or not, is going to be one day under the auspices of Soroka to bring together Jews and Bedouins, as you do in Soroka Hospital. But as I introduce you, I have a personal question. I want you, Dr. Fraiha, tell us your story. Tell us your story. How come a daughter of the Bedouin groups and tribes and settlements in the Negev, how come that she emerged as a doctor, as a social leader? What happened in your life? Please tell us. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for this introduction. I'm humbled. I really thank you for all the compliments. I do have a very unique, I guess, life story. I give all the credit to my parents, and I think they did a pretty good job raising me and my siblings. I'm only half Bedouin, so my father is Bedouin. He lived in a tent in the Bedouin diaspora when he was a child. But because he didn't want to be a shepherd, it was very important for him to go out in the world and look for higher education. So he went to study in the Technion and became the first Bedouin engineer, and came back to his own community to help them build bridges with the Jewish community of the Negev, but also build the infrastructure for what we know today to be the Bedouin towns and the Bedouin city of Rahat, in towns like Tel Sheva, Lakia, and the towns that surround Soroka and Beersheba. And my mother is what we in Arabic call falah. She's not a Bedouin, she's a Muslim from the northern part of Israel. But she also very, very much appreciated higher education. And when they met, it was very, very important for them to give us the idea of how much education is important. And just to give you a taste of what it was like to be their daughter, it is very, very unacceptable or not very common to see a young girl going to school, especially when I was young. Today, we see more and more Bedouin women study in universities. But when I was in kindergarten, my father's father asked him, I mean, how much do you pay to get her to kindergarten? And my father said maybe a third of the price. And his father told him, are you crazy? I mean, you're not going to see the fruits of it. She's going to marry some guy and you're not going to see anything flourish out of this. And happily, we proved him wrong, though I really appreciate my grandfather. But we see the difference in this generation and the coming generations and how things are being different than what it was before. And I think because I had this privilege and this luck of being born to these parents, I had the luck during my life to go and study medicine in Jerusalem. But they also gave me, they encouraged me to come back and help my own community. Like my father did when he went to Haifa to study in the Technion and came back to be an engineer in Tel Sheva. I felt that I have this very, very deep connection to the Negev and to my own community, both Bedouin and Jewish community, as I was raised in Omer, which is a Jewish town in the Negev. And I knew that I wanted to be a doctor in the Negev. So I chose to do my internship in Soroka and come back. And this is one of the best decisions that I've made in my life. Because of this, I decided to stay and do my residency in internal medicine in Soroka, in what I think, and it's also objectively the best internal medicine department in Israel. And also I got to learn even more about my Bedouin heritage and my Bedouin society, and got even closer to my Bedouin roots that I was before. I've learned to respect this community and this culture, and it made me understand what kind of doctor I want to be, and that I want to be a doctor that deals with my community and helps get accessible healthcare for all. This is why me and my team that I met in Boston in 2016 decided to found what was called then Genesis and now called Rodina. And this is a non-governmental organization that deals with preventing genetic diseases in the Bedouin community. Today, we expanded to encouraging better prenatal care and prenatal follow-up for Bedouin women. And we give better access to health information to people who are illiterate and only speak Arabic. And I see this as part of what we do in Soroka, obviously, and what we do in the Negev, since this is extremely important to be part of the community and not this isolated bubble of very good medicine. So this is, I think, the tip of the iceberg of my story.
How are your activities accepted by the people of the Negev? How are the women, which is your major concern, how they react to the fact that one of them, a Bedouin woman, a Bedouin doctor, comes and researches and teaches them, because you're teaching quite a lot in your research. Is the
Right.
attitude favorable? Are they reluctant? How does it work?
It's actually, they're very receptive to what we do and what we say. I think when I grew up, I didn't have many Bedouin role models, especially women role models. And today the situation is different. I am very happy to be a part of, of a group of amazing Bedouin women and Bedouin women physicians working in Soroka, but also in other sectors in the Negev, that can be the role models for young teenagers. And I see how important this is to the teenagers, to their parents, to the women we talk to, because we come from the same community and we know the culture. And I know, parents come to me and ask me to talk to their daughters about studying medicine. We have women coming to us to get consults about family planning and getting pregnant, or any other issue that can come to mind. Gets to my door or my phone, because this integration to the community, and I feel now that I'm an integral part of it, and I see that I get mutual respect for my crowd, because I speak the language, because I come from the same place, because I'm part of them and they are part of me.
Don't you clash with certain traditions?
Well, I do, but I feel that this is part of something that is much bigger than myself, and this is part of of a global trend and a local trend of modernization, of sedentarization. People are getting more education. They understand that it is very important to we say rise as we climb, so to encourage women to get power positions, and this is not as scary or as threatening as it was perceived before. So yes, I do get some resistance, to be honest, mostly from men and mostly from elderly men, but we see the trend going positively into gender equality, into more education, into better workforce for the Bedouins, and I'm glad to be part of it.
So let me ask you. You spoke about men. I must ask you a question. How did you feel, a young woman, young doctor, Bedouin, in a milieu of mostly Jewish male people? Did you feel, I would say, awkward, embarrassed, or did you feel that you're opening a new way into changing the atmosphere in this kind of place?
So thank you for this question. I must say that I've never felt discriminated as a woman. And also I have to give the credit to my parents, because, my mother always used to say that she wanted daughters so she can show the entire world, and specifically the Arab world, how to raise daughters. And I really think that she did a good job, not only because of me, but also for my sisters. And my father said the same, and it was very important for him that I will be independent. My mother always used to say that you never be dependent on a man. And, I know how to deal with my car and change the tire and everything that, things that are very stigmatic against women. But I think for me, it built this self-efficacy and the feeling that there's nothing I can't do because I'm a woman. And I maybe it's not very, maybe it sounds a little bit arrogant to say, but I've never felt less than a man. So I never feel uncomfortable in a group of men. And I think no woman should feel like that. And this is also, and I must say that, you know, I work in an environment that is very equal and very gender equal and very gender sensitive. And my team is incredible in these issues. I must say that it happens also when I go to Bedouin towns, because I'm a doctor, which perceived as a very luxurious or prestigious profession. I'm being accepted even in groups of men, and I see it as a very great leap in history.
Well, now you're going to go to Harvard to study public administration. What do you intend to do when you come back to us? When will you come back? How long would it take?
So the program is for 1 year. So I'm planning to come back after a year. And I plan to stay in the Negev. I feel that this is my home, both the Negev, in general, but specifically Soroka. I was born in Soroka, so it's only natural. And the reason I wanted to study public administration and then coming back to Israel and Soroka is because I believe that we have to change the way we think about medicine. When I studied medicine in Jerusalem, we study specifically, these algorithms of how to treat specific diseases, but we treat diseases and we don't necessarily think of, how keeping healthy people healthy. And the incentives, the economic incentives that we use in our healthcare and in any other healthcare in the world are, leaning towards treating diseases and less keeping healthy people healthy. And I think that this is something that I would love, to change. And specifically when I talk about prevention, my focus is on accessibility to healthcare, bringing preventive medicine to underprivileged society, and closing the gaps when we talk about health inequality. Of course, it deals with education and with welfare and with many other things, but this is why I thought that, I should study public policy as something that will complete my medical education.
Well, so we can just wish you a very, very happy year of studies, and we'll be waiting for you. You can't escape. You're waiting.
I'm not planning to. Thank you.
You see, in many ways, Yasmeen and myself and some friends, we have the same goal: to make the Negev the future of Israel. I remember quite a few talks I had with Ben-Gurion about the Negev. He would have been amazed to find out that in the Negev today, people are making wine out of grapes grown in the Negev, are making oil out of olive trees, and are making fish, all kinds of fish, are making special fruits, which we have all along the year. And then they are developing the energy, solar energy and wind energy, which is going to change the face of the Negev completely. And that brings me to turn to Dr. Codish. Because Dr. Codish, before I start asking you, I must tell you, I was at a certain conference a few years ago where you spoke about futuristic medicine. And I understand this is a baby of yours, a kind of hobby of yours. So before we start to speak about Soroka, tell me, what is in your eyes the future of medicine. Dr. Codish, please.
So, hello, everyone. Medicine, as we practice it today, is very much a natural evolution from the 19th century. And the information revolution that we're all experiencing is a little late arriving at medicine. And I think the COVID-19 year, and I hope it ends at that, so we'll call it a COVID-19 year, taught us a lot about how we can practice medicine differently. So one aspect of this is that we no longer need to be centered in hospitals or buildings, and we can do this in a much wider scope. I think people appreciate community care much more than they did before. And while I am director of Soroka, I worked for several years in the community, and most care happened in the community. And a lot of the way Israel treated this pandemic, way better than many other countries in the world, relies on the strengths of hospitals and communities. So this is going to be one aspect of the way medicine shifts. And another major aspect is the fact that we can no longer expect a physician to know everything. It used to be, we'd say, a physician studies for 7 years, gets a nice black bag, puts a little pieces of equipment in it, and can travel from home to home and provide care. We now have the internet, we have Google, we have facts coming out much faster than ever before. We have artificial intelligence. And all of this is now meeting medicine head on. And this is the reason that one of our major goals at Soroka in the coming years is to adapt to this new innovation world, meet the startup nation or innovation nation with healthcare, and enables a very rapid transition we're seeing into digital health, be it patient-based, physician-based, or system-based, into something that improves the way we practice medicine, because the old way is no longer working.
So that's the future of
It
medicine.
is. I think it is. We'll remain with the tender touch of a physician. Physicians will not be replaced, or nurses, or any other clinician, but they'll be able to provide much better care as mundane tasks are passed on to computers or AI systems.
Now, let me ask you about Soroka. We know that Soroka today is one of the largest, also perhaps the largest one in Israel, the biggest one. Soroka is also the meeting place of Jew and Arab, which is very important. And we have this kind of cooperation and cohabitation, which is so important, especially after the problems we had a couple of months ago. Let me ask you, how do you see the future of Soroka? What are your special personal goals of this for this hospital? What to do with this tremendous potential of knowledge, of talent, of character, and of course, of technology, which you mentioned before? How do you see it from your place today for the future?
So I will share with you a thought I have several times a week, which is sometimes shorter and sometimes longer. Are we doing the best we can to provide healthcare to the Negev population? That's our primary goal. And a strong Soroka is a strong Negev. People will not immigrate to an area that does not have excellent healthcare. The Negev population has many unique characteristics. Rachel touched on some of them. It's not just a large population, it's a impoverished population. It is extremely diverse. 30% of the population in the Beersheba area are Bedouin, which have unique characteristics, some of them better, some of them put them at more risk for diseases and so on. And Soroka as a medical center needs to remain an anchor of community in the Negev, which we already are, is the way I see it. It's one of the things I learned taking this position, is the central place Soroka takes in the life of the Negev. I've been in the Negev since I'm 5. My parents immigrated from the US to Beersheba when Ben-Gurion University opened. People lied also to US American academics and told them there's work in the Negev. I've been in the Negev for quite a while, and it is clear that we need to make this place stronger in many aspects. So the future of Soroka is in many ways the future of the Negev. A very strong, increasingly better, professionally, academically, research, innovation, all of these aspects that make a hospital good. And we need to lead the country. We're not the largest hospital in Israel. We're the second largest hospital in Israel. But size is not what's important. What's important is the fact that we provide superb care for the Negev population. Another aspect, I think, of the future of the hospital is maintaining what you mentioned, which is our workforce. We have about 5,000 workers in the hospital. All 99.5% wake up in the morning wanting to do good for the Negev. This is not the same in every hospital in the country. And we heard Yasmeen speak earlier, and she personalizes the dedication and commitment our workers have. I really don't take this for granted. It makes my life that much easier. And we need to maintain this. We need to maintain 5,000 people who come to work as one team. We treated COVID this year. When we first started, I've told this story before. We first started, we were going to do a lottery of who would care for the COVID patients because everyone was terrified. And internal medicine F director called me and said, "What's this nonsense about a lottery? We're going there, the whole team, as one person." And that followed out throughout the year. Every time we wanted to replace the teams stepped up and said, "We want to do this." We had an orthopedics ward care for COVID-19 patients. So moving forward with all the innovation, high-tech, AI, and so on, we'll keep an eye on the target of keeping everyone united. And as far as coexistence go, I will quote the former mayor of Rahat, who famously said that the single place he feels equal in Israeli society is Soroka Medical Center. And we tried to convince him that it was the entire healthcare system, and he said, no, it's Soroka. When he goes somewhere else, he feels less equal. And we're proud of this. It's important. When people ask me how many Arab doctors I have on the staff, my answer is, and it's the true, honest answer, I have absolutely no idea. Everyone who's good and is qualified is accepted, and everyone who isn't is not, regardless of where they come from. And as a result, I honestly don't know. I'm happy to see more and more, because if you're 30% of the population, you should be 30% of the workforce, ideally.
You see, that's what I heard, that today they either want to double the capacity of Soroka or to build another hospital in the Negev. What do you think about that?
So the mayor of Beersheba is not going to like this answer. Beersheba doesn't need another hospital. It needs more personnel. Right. We need to develop more physicians, more nurses, more physicians, and allow for the population to cover gaps. There are gaps in healthcare outcomes where the Negev fares less well than the rest of the country. And this is unconscionable and needs to be addressed. But what's needed is community care, specialist care in the community, and operating rooms, not an entire new hospital. We don't need new internal medicine wards.
Right.
We're doing well in Soroka. We need more people to staff the departments we have. And I think the government is realizing this, and that's the step we're going to.
Well, what you said before, that people wake up in the morning and say, how can I help the Negev? I think that's a wonderful vision and motivation. Did you have to install it into these people, or it comes naturally in the people you work with, to say that actually they are motivated by a very deep commitment to the Negev, to the community, to Jews and Arabs together? Does it come naturally to them?
On a daily basis, I'm inspired by my workers, and not the other way around. Literally on a daily basis. Last week, we went around handing out awards for 40 years of work at Soroka. It's hard to keep your eyes dry speaking to some of these people. These are people who have worked for 40 years at Soroka and woke up every day asking that question. And almost everyone wants to know, how do they continue working after retirement age? And as I said, that's the secret to managing Soroka, is having the staff, working here.
Tell me, when you acted against the COVID-19, how could you actually take care of all this population of Bedouins spread over the Negev, and sometimes not in very hygienic infrastructure? What did you do? How did Soroka actually meet this challenge?
So the Bedouin population with COVID is a somewhat sad story. The first wave affected travelers, people who came from abroad, and the Bedouins were largely spared because they travel less. Right. Living probably in open areas that are well aired turns out not to be a huge risk factor for COVID-19. In the second and third wave, we saw more and more Bedouins, largely, in my opinion, due to a lot of chronic illness that is not well controlled, and obesity, which were underlying conditions. The Bedouin population is now vaccinated fairly well, but it took a long time to get there. There was a lot of resistance to vaccination, culturally motivated, and I don't think we addressed the cultural aspect well enough. We provided accessibility. Trucks showed up with vaccinations under every palm tree in the Negev, but I don't think we handled the educational part of that all that well. And as a result, in the second and third wave, particularly the end of the disease, we saw far more Bedouin. At some point, there were only Bedouin with COVID-19 at the hospital, including very critically ill patients. Now that the disease is over, we're after that. And again, the vaccination rates are much better than they were in the beginning. As far as care goes, we cared for everyone the same way. We care, Bedouin receiving treatment for COVID-19 is no different than anyone else. In fact, we were very proud that we were able to bring patients from all over the country to receive care at Soroka because we were better prepared to treat the severely ill patients at Soroka.
Now tell me, beside the COVID-19, are there any major diseases, problems, which are, I would say, endemic to Soroka that you have to take care of compared to other hospitals in the country?
So I'll try to answer briefly. The Negev is a very young area. The average age in the Negev is 27. So we don't see that many. We see less diseases of chronic, less chronic illnesses of the elderly than other areas in the country. Regretfully, because the Negev is an impoverished area, patients who do come in at a later stage and less controlled than other countries see. So we see other areas see in the country. So the patterns of illness are younger, but when the elderly patients come in, they tend to be, on an average, less cared for and less controlled. So that's one major issue. The second issue is genetic illnesses. Because we are in an area of immigration, so each immigration wave brought with it genetic illnesses typical to that population. And the Bedouin population, which with a relatively large rate of consanguineous marriages, has more genetic diseases within the families. As a result, we have a world-leading genetic institute that probably leads the world in diagnosing new genetic illnesses because we're able to care for this population. And the Ministry of Health, which is also a great boon for the state of Israel, once, say, a new disease is found in any family, not just your Bedouin, that we can screen for, it is immediately covered by the health services basket. And we can screen their entire family, essentially cutting genetic diseases at the root. So again, in the future, a lot of great stuff will be going on here.
Now, I want to tell you, I think it was 2 years ago that Rachel took me to the inauguration of a new wing in Soroka. It was a fantastic experience, I must say. Now tell me, what is the next step? What are the future things you are going to manage to direct in the let's say increase in Soroka's capacity?
So this year is an amazing year of construction and development for Soroka. In about a month, we'll be breaking ground on a new research building with the Adelis Foundation and Ben-Gurion University, a new rehabilitation building with the Moskowitz Foundation and the Helmsley Trust. We're adding 50% to the emergency department capacity with the UJA New York, Kirsch Morel family support. We're building a new neonatal intensive care unit. So these are huge projects that will take place within the next year or two and will be completed in 3 or 4. And I'm lucky to have been able to replace most of our major technologies. So we have a new MRI, the Anita and Bill Newman Pediatric Imaging Institute that we just opened a few months ago. And we're buying a new MRI, new SPECT CTs, a new PET CT, a new CT, a new cardiology suite. This will all take place in a few years. And to be honest, I'm not sure we have enough engineers to install all of this in the short time we have, but I wish myself and my people who come after me that will be their problem, that they have too much development going on. What we really need to build is a new internal medicine building, which we're going to call the blood-brain building, which will include cardiology and neurology with new internal medicine departments. Our current building is 50 years old and not really adequate to the 21st century. So beyond all what we're doing, we have plans for the future as well, as should be the case.
You see, Pazit and Rachel, you have a lot of things to do, a lot of work for you, right? And you know, Dr. Codish, what you're saying, if Ben Gurion had heard your words, he would have said in Hebrew, Matzah Sadan Patisho, which in English would be, the anvil has found its hammer. So you're doing a great work, and thank you very much. And now I guess that we have still a few minutes time for the questions and answers. Pazit, I'll pass the conduct of the next few minutes to you.
Thank you. Toda Rabba, Professor Michael Bar-Zohar, Dr. Yasmeen Abu-Fraiha, and Dr. Shlomi Codish for this inspiring and informative session. I do have here a few questions from the audience and a few live questions if you want to offer. We hope to get to that in the Q&A icon right here. So you answered one question, Shlomi Codish, about what new projects can we expect being built in Soroka, and in fact, it's a lot. It's a lot. What is your current challenge? And that's a question to you and also to Yasmeen, to Shlomi and Yasmeen. What is the current challenge right now in Soroka and in the Negev in order to get to where we all want to get to? Yeah.
Yasmeen, ladies first.
Thank you. So I think, well, probably Dr. Codish knows much more about this issue than I do, but I can at least say my opinion. I think that the greatest challenge is obviously the Bedouin community and the health gaps, and the fact that this community is getting larger and larger. Today, it's 30% of the population in the Negev. An estimation are that in 2050, there'll be 50% of the population in the Negev. And we know, according to statistics, that this is a very well, let's say they have higher prevalence of diseases and critical diseases like diabetes, hypertension, cardiac problems, and this is something that we will have to address, and also because also with the move to more community medicine. And the fact that the doctors should be at home, or at least with some kind of mobile interaction with their patients, I think that we need to get very fast on this train before we'll miss it. So I think these are the two things that I'll say that are challenges for the future.
Thank you, Dr. Codish.
So I would say that our current challenge is beating the trend to innovation infrastructure. We currently need to have a good infrastructure for innovation at Soroka. We have good plans on how to do that and what to transfer. And having that infrastructure in place will enable us to do a lot of what Yasmeen spoke about, which is have the infrastructure for the companies and the industry collaboration and so on, to bring all of this into where we are and what we do together. There is a time-sensitive aspect to this because all hospitals in Israel are doing this now. For instance, we signed a contract with the Israeli aerospace industries last week, no, 2 weeks ago. And we're the first hospital to have done this. And can you imagine the collaboration that's possible with a leading medical center and a company that can put satellites into space that can, spy into trucks in Iran? And what can we do with these technological capabilities that we can only dream of and bring them into medicine? So having this infrastructure in place will be a huge game changer for everyone, and also for bringing technology to the Negev. The Negev is not tech savvy enough yet, and bringing these startup companies and so on into the Negev to collaborate with this two heavy traditional companies, IAI and Soroka are huge monolithic groups, and having us come together and create this young dynamic group is something I feel is very urgent.
Okay, thank you. And one more question for both of you. In your wildest dreams, in an ideal world, where would you like to see the Negev in 5 years? Dr. Codish, why don't you take that first, please?
Okay. The Negev needs to be equal to every other place in the country. We need to no longer be felt as, I personally don't feel second-class citizen in any way, but when my daughter went to she served in an elite unit in the army, and on her first weekend, someone asked her if we had cinemas in Soroka at Beersheba, or would she stay at the weekend and go see a movie with them, which is really insulting. And it's something the Negev needs to complete. We need to have an educational system that's good enough to have people get into medical school without any favors. We need to have a situation where Yasmeen is not an outlier, but is the norm. We need to have a situation where we have restaurants and theater on the level of Tel Aviv, and we should be the second metropolitan area in the country, or third. Let's give Jerusalem its due. So Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and then the Negev, which will allow for people to afford housing, have great lifestyle and quality of life, and equal to everyone else in the country. We have some ways to get there.
Thank you. Yasmeen?
Well, I couldn't agree more. I must say that I spent 6 years living in Jerusalem and 3 years living in Tel Aviv, and I still think that Beersheba is the best city in Israel, and I think that we have the best people, and I really believe that we can build an empire in the Negev and be this center for knowledge and for good and excellent healthcare, and that people will come, instead of going to the center of Israel, will come to Soroka and to the Negev to get better healthcare. I know that we have the people for it, and we need more infrastructure, more equipment, and more research in order to get there. But I really know that I believe in the people I work with.
Thank you. And one more question for you, Yasmeen. What would you like to tell women who are aspiring, who are seeing you as a role model and aspiring to become young doctors and other influencers in the community?
Well, I'll tell them, to come to me, and I will help them with whatever they need. I think that the most important thing is never give up, which is a cliche, but it works. Be assertive and know how to insist about things that are important for you. And the sky's the limit. There's nothing that is impossible.
And there's a question here coming live. Are there all Bedouin children obligated to study, and how are they integrated in the surrounding communities?
Well, this is a good question. So, according to the Israeli law, yes, all Israeli citizens have to go to school. Since they're 3 years old. The problem is the quality of the education system, because it's different. The education system in the Bedouin cities and Bedouin towns is different than the education system in the Jewish towns in the Negev. And one of the biggest challenges of this era is closing these gaps. But again, there are a lot of work being done on these issues. And also a specific issue about education is women's education. That is still less in the Bedouin community than what we see in the Jewish community. But again, we see a very positive trend in the last decade.
Okay, thank you. And to both of you, There's a question here about the last year, which has been so difficult and complex, not only the pandemic, but then the escalation. And the question is part of that type of hostility and conflict coming to Soroka in any shape and form? And what do you do when you confront it? It's not an easy question. Who volunteers to take that first?
I'll take that one.
Okay.
So we had two somewhat tense days in the Negev where roads were closed and there was some concern. I am extremely happy, and I haven't had a chance to talk to people in person. I will get that chance. The Bedouin leadership took control of the situation and stopped it. So while hostilities continued around the country, the Negev became quiet much faster than anywhere else. And it wasn't because police came in with brute force and whatever. It was because of talking and reaching understandings with local leadership. So that was one aspect of it. And while it was unpleasant for a day or two, such as war or wartime situations, I think we healed much faster. And I think the wounds are much better healed. Not completely, but better. Within Soroka, there are challenges. When you have a workforce that includes people from the right and the left, you will have people posting on Facebook on either side of their opinions. And you need to keep freedom of speech open. People can express their opinions and stop hate speech, which is what we did. We did not use brute force at any point. We spoke to directors and said, please talk to this person. He will need to continue working in this hospital after everything is over. And we can't have tensions ride this high. We had some Arab doctors, because being a minority is harder in this situation, who felt unsafe coming in and out of the hospital. And we let people take vacation if they wanted. And we even arranged for a very small amount of people, places to sleep within the hospital for the one day that they felt unsafe. And we tried to support people. This will leave wounds. The situation, this escalation of this last period will leave wounds. I think, maybe I'm too optimistic here, but I think within Soroka, we're pretty much over it already, with maybe very few people beyond it. And we've learned very important lessons for the next time. And regretfully, we know a next time will come. And I think we're much better prepared now for this aspect that surprised us this time, and how to manage, this aspect within the hospital. It's complex.
I also want to address this issue, if it's okay. And I want to say that in the past 5 years for me, and specifically the past year, I spent most of my time in the hospital with my colleagues. So practically, especially the residents, but also any other person who works in Soroka practically lives here. And I saw my team more than I saw my family. And I think this opened an opportunity for discussion and for a conversation. And I had very good conversations with my team in the ER and in my internal medicine department. And people talked about the fear and the pain and the things that were difficult for them during this time. And because we have such good relationships, we were able to talk about our traumas or our conflicts in a very, very respectful way, in a way that actually made us even closer. And I think this is part of the magic of this place, because we work together and we give, we help other people. We're able to build bridges, and this is extremely important.
Thank you. We have a few more questions. We may go, if it's okay with you, a few minutes over time. Is it okay?
By all means.
Okay, so we're very proud of you with everything you do, how you respond to emergency situations, how you respond to any healthcare situation day to day to anyone who needs. And we want to ask here at American Friends of Soroka Medical Center, how can we be of support. Of course, we have been partnering, we have been coming when we can, we have been virtually connecting with you, and we're very proud of our American friends. But going forward, if there's anything else that we can do to enhance this partnership and our commitment to help out the flourishing of the Negev.
I guess this is mine. I'll try to avoid the obvious answer. Doing what we do requires a lot of support, and the Israeli healthcare system is underfunded by between $1 and $2 billion a year compared to the OECD average. And regretfully, a lot of what we do requires support from our friends in Israel and abroad. And we're very grateful to have, and very lucky to have a very successful group in the US, our American friends of Soroka Medical Center, and helping us raise funds and support for various projects and activities is extremely important. The neonatal intensive care unit, for instance, the way we do stuff in Israel, we need to rebuild it, and because it needs to be fortified, so the government's okay, build the fourth floor, but leave everything else empty, and Sunday when you raise money, you can build the rest of the floors. So this is, very typical Israeli thinking, right? But it's okay. Moses and Har Sinai said, "Na'aseh v'nishma." So first we do, and then we plan, which is fine. And I think another aspect is being in Beersheba, which is a very impoverished area. We need people knowing about Soroka, supporting us, telling our story. Advocacy is important to us. And I think activities such as this, and I'm extremely grateful for you all for putting it together. Deborah, Pazit, Caroline, Rachel, thank you all, in case, people are leaving, so they should hear it now before the last minute, for putting this together and helping getting our name out. Come visit us, see what we're doing. Our experience has been that people come and visit Soroka, remain friends of ours for a long time.
Okay, thank you. So before we finish with this amazing, inspiring session, and let Professor Bar-Zohar say a few words, we would like to ask you one final question, and if you have any wrap-up message to address, you can also say it now. We know you will encounter a lot of moments that stay with you. Can be seemingly small incidents, or much larger. If you can share with us one incident or one thing anything that made you really proud of what you're doing and in helping people.
What do you say, Yasmeen? You want to go first? You want me to give you time to think?
I have so many.
Proud.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so it's basically narrowing
How to
it
pick
down.
just one.
For the essence of time, yes. Okay, so Dr. Codish,
Okay.
please.
So probably the most moving moment of this last year. Doing a whole lifetime thing is impossible. There's no way I could even try. So I'll just go with this 1 year. We had a nurse from dermatology who contracted COVID-19, probably at work. And Yasmeen is saying, going with her head, because she was one of the people who cared for her. And she required mechanical ventilation and intensive care. And this was probably the most terrifying period of my professional career, because this is a worker who works for you. You're responsible for what happens to her. And she contracted this disease at work, and she is now at the brink of death. And while we care for everyone equally, this woman received love, care, caring, it's the same word, yeah, of everyone who cared for her.
Warmth and support, yeah.
And people went into tremendous battle to save her life. And the day she was extubated, I would have sacrificed a sheep if it was still a common practice. And it was a very proud moment for me, not because I was relieved, also because I was relieved that this was the outcome, but also because of the amount of effort and amount of probably dozens of people were praying for her every day who never knew her before. And for this 1 year, this was probably a combination of the most terrifying and most satisfying moments of this pandemic. And this is a tough competition of defining the moment.
Thank you so much for sharing this moving story. Dr. Abu-Fraiha?
Yeah, so it really, I have so many moments, but I chose one that's really important for me personally. I had a patient in my internal medicine department who suffered from lung cancer, and he was it was metastatic, and he came with severe dyspnea and severe pain, and he spent I think about a week in my apartment, and his his daughter and son were really sad about his about the fact that he was very, very sick, and we helped them going through the process of grief, and helped him not to suffer, and he passed away eventually at home after we gave all the support that we could to his family. And it was very important to me personally because I did the same with my own mother. And after he passed away, his daughter came to the department to say thank you. And she was very, very emotional. And even when I thought, this was only like a day in the job, but for her it was the entire world, because we gave him what he wanted. We gave her this opportunity to say goodbye at the house, and I think that we always think of medicine, as something that is very heroic, but these are the little things that actually do make the difference for our patients and their families. And the fact that someone comes to you and say thank you after his or her loved one has passed away makes me proud of what I do on a daily basis.
That's very emotional. Thank you so much for sharing that. And before we wrap it up and thank Professor Bar-Zohar and special guest, Dr. Shlomi Codish would like to share one last thing with us, please.
So not so much sharing as a suggestion. If what you heard during this session and or any other time seemed like something you would like to learn more about, then you can look us up at the American Friends of Soroka website, and feel free to email me. I'm notorious for answering emails late at night with any other question or something you'd like to know about us. And as I said, I extend a personal invitation to visit us. AFS has a group coming most years, not last year, and we'd love to host you on our campus, which you can see from behind me is a photo of it on a regular day. It's a lovely campus to visit.
It's a great experience. Toda Rabba is a great experience. It's our Mission to Israel annual, and we are planning to renew it very soon this year. So check it out on our website and come with us, because this type of experience cannot be put into words, or not on the screen either. So please, Professor Bar-Zohar, bevakasha.
I must tell you something. I've spoken for many organizations. I've met many groups of people. I've never seen such a dedication and such a vision as I saw both in the people who work in Soroka as in the people like Yupazit and Rachel. Where is Rachel? She's there. And Rachel was so devoted and so deeply motivated. So I think that's a kind of Soroka Corona. I think there is a kind of epidemic about you people. You have this kind of something in common. People, some of you, which we had in the former chapters, some of you came from America, from Russia, born in Israel, Jews and Arabs, and all of you helping and being dedicated so deeply to Soroka and Soroka's vision that really touches my heart. And I'll tell you that I learned a lot in this seminar, this webinar of four different sequences. And I shall miss you guys. It was a great seminar. And thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Pazit. And of course, the Codish, Yasmeen Abu-Fraiha, and all the others who took part in explaining to us how this miracle of Soroka sprang in Beersheba, in the Negev, in modern Israel. Thank you so much.
Toda rabba. Thank you, Professor Bar-Zohar. You're not going quite yet. We're coming over every time we come to Israel on the mission. Professor Bar-Zohar takes us to the Museum of David Ben-Gurion in Tel Aviv, the house, and in the Negev, and enriches us. And also you're going to come here to New York and to America, and maybe we'll host you in a real salon. So toda rabba, everybody, for this, and see you soon. Check out the Soroka.org website. If you contribute to Soroka.org/children to pediatric emergency care, $180 or more, you'll get a signed copy of the David Ben-Gurion biography by the author, Professor Bar-Zohar. Toda rabba, yishar koach, toda rabba. Thank you to you all.